Welcome again. One more time, the program of HR Week divides in 3 tracks, so choose at hrweek.rs what you would like to follow. Here at track 1, we are starting with another lecture. As a general manager of Nuvola Technologies Bulgaria, Angelina is putting into practice her educational background in social psychology and EMBA degree with Kutruli, as well as her 15 years of experience in talent development, program management, and organizational design. Her experience includes both large international corporations such as ING and Hewlett-Packard, as well as smaller startups in the IT and software industry in various roles, such as training manager, people development manager, HR leader, and operations manager. In recent years, Angelina has been working for the sustainable growth of the Nuvola Center for Technology and Innovation, which creates software solutions in the fields of healthcare, clinical research, and cybersecurity. Welcome.
Thank you so much for the kind invitation. Can you hear me well?
Yes, I hear you very well. Please continue with your presentation.
Okay. So I'm really happy to be here, and I'm happy to be here for two reasons. One is that if this topic, the journey from HR to general management, is interesting to be part of this event, it means that we will see more HR people in the business decision making process in the future, which is fantastic in terms of organizational health and growth. And the other reason behind my happiness today being here is that probably it means that I made some decisions, or the decision making framework that I used in the past for my career management was, like, I would say, productive. So today I would like to share. It's not a typical role for an HR person to be a presenter, not a listener. But today, together with you, I would like to walk through my journey from HR, in particular training when I started, to general management, and to discuss with you my lessons. Of course, I would like to add a disclaimer here that those are my lessons, and I would not like to say to generalize that those are the working strategies or working tips. For me, it was a successful approach. So I would like more to focus not the result, because the result is that today I'm a general manager of a software company in Bulgaria. I would like to focus more on the process, because in the trainings for strategic decision making, we used to say that when you need to evaluate, it's better to evaluate the process, because you could repeat it rather than evaluate the result that actually is related to so many factors that you could not control. So I would like to focus more on the process. At a glance, you can see 15 years of experience. It's too much for being part of outside dynamic environment of the HR departments, but it's too little to explore this complex world of balance between people and business. So I spent 8 of those 15 years in L&D function, extremely rewarding experience. So L&D is a department that could give you so much in terms of understanding the process of people development, understanding also the business needs. So great experience, but from my perspective, it was a little bit narrow and focused on only one of the functions into the HR. So four of the HR, four of those 15 years of experience, I continue my growth into the HR leadership role, so end-to-end HR, and I'll tell more about this. This is my first year as a general manager. Luckily, it's 2020, so my first year as a general manager is like the major pandemic, so great for me. But as always, it's a challenging environment when you have the opportunity to grow. And as it was mentioned during the intro, I spent 10 years in corporate, and 5 years in startups. So I would say that I have a pretty much good idea on the different business environments, and I would like to share with you what was actually my decision-making framework to manage the career. So the process of making career decisions for me was extremely structured. So we call it journey, but as a traveler, there are two types of travelers: those who are able to enjoy the moment and like be opportunistic to everything that comes to them and explore the presence, and the other type of travelers that structure everything, having their traveler goals, everything is booked, everything is they're prepared for them for their trip. So my career trip was more like the second type of traveler. And it started 15 years ago with my decision making framework, how to make career decisions. And the key for me was to grow, to be able to grow in every meaning of the word you could imagine, to grow in terms of skills, to grow in terms of capabilities, to grow in terms of even money, roles, everything that you could imagine, but it was the growth. And from my perspective, it's really important to identify the trigger, the flow that will gives you power throughout the process of career management. So for me, this was the growth, and I thoughtfully looked for situations, roles, companies, business sectors that will provide me this opportunity. It might be other trigger for different people. It might be respect, it might be prestige, it might be finance, but for me, this was the growth. And I'm sharing this because, from my perspective, the career moves are a strong and powerful tool to grow and to learn. And I made those decisions based on this strategic framework to grow. So the journey, this is actually my journey. I started 15 years ago with ING in the business sector finance. 15 years ago, finance was the most fast growing sector, full of opportunities, providing the ability um, to make different career moves, also to have a really diverse footprint of roles. So it was again a cautious choice to enter the finance business. Of course, in 2009, I was wondering how cautious was that choice. But when the financial crisis hit, but that was the moment when I realized that if there is another crisis, I don't want to be where I am now. And this was again a decision making point that I used in the future. Do I want in, let's say, couple of years or having a next um, challenging event to be where I am? But the finance business at that moment was a fruitful foundation to get experience. So my goal at that moment was to gain experience, corporate experience, process experience, people experience, and to understand better the business. So the lesson that I learned, I will share in a couple of minutes, but from my perspective, the most valuable part of this journey at the very beginning was to understand that you cannot do HR for the sake of HR. That something could look really amazing on paper, on a presentation, but that it's your responsibility to make it work. So it's not only about producing products like HR products or training products, any kind of product that you could imagine, is to produce things with high visibility, high usability in order to achieve results. So this was the most important lesson for me at the very beginning. Then I decided cautiously to move to the IT sector. And those were my criteria, not only at that moment, the first career choice, but afterwards during my entire career. I'm cautiously choosing the sector when I want to develop skills, when I want to enter. And I consciously made this choice years ago to move from finance to IT and then to software development because I saw in like 2013, I think, the future there and the speed and the potential of this business. For me, the business that is growing will provide more opportunities for growth too. So I started to search for a company and for a role that will answer my need to grow, but is definitely in the IT business. And it was challenging at the very beginning, but it pays off extremely well later on. So I left actually my stable and growing career in finance. Even um, I have great success track there. I have great next step defined already and agreed with the management. But I decided to move out from finance and to enter software business, IT business, because of the future potential. At that moment, I understood that I have too limited knowledge on the HR, as it was only limited to learning and development. With all my respect to this amazing function, I have no idea about the other processes. I did not have a clue about the other businesses apart from finance. So I actually dropped of my successful career in NG and decided to step out of the comfort zone and to enter again a big company. It was Hewlett Packard, with the general idea to learn and to broaden my knowledge about the other HR processes and functions and overall the processes. So my choice then was to enter again a corporate because this would provide me with the opportunity to see best practices, at least in design. Sometimes in the large companies, you see best practices in design developed in a perfect way, but usage is not always that perfect. But the large companies provide with the opportunity to learn and to observe best practices and experience prepared by a center of excellence in a way that you're not able to do in small companies. But then I decided after like spending a couple of years there, amazing experience in terms of process knowledge, in terms of know-how. Um, but at a certain point of time, I understood that I spent close to 10 years in corporate without actually being able to gain and to develop my hands-on. So I made a cautious choice to um, exit the corporate world and to step into the startups. It was a roller coaster experience. So a lot of things that you're used to have by default in corporate companies, you need to develop from scratch for startups. But that was amazing opportunity to see the result, the impact that you could have being an HR person in a smaller company with opportunity to make a difference, to make a change directly. And also the responsibility was high, of course. So I entered the startup world. I started with a small startup in Bulgaria. My ultimate career goal at that moment was to find a business sector and a company that will provide me with the opportunity to lead end-to-end HR function without having this experience in the past. And honestly, I was looking months. I had like more than probably 50 or 60 interviews to find the best fit for the next career step in order to be able to lead HR function end to end and also to gain this hands on. And I did it. Then I built actually a HR function from scratch, an experience that I would like recommend to anyone that has a high risk tolerance, because to build a startup to start the HR function from scratch in an environment when you need to achieve results extremely fast It might be challenging, but it was an amazing opportunity for me to explore all the HR functions there. So comp and ban, rewards and recognition, performance management, recruitment. Uh, so actually, from a certain perspective, it was a demotion from big corporate world and from my corporate career. From career perspective, that was the best move I did ever, uh, because of the opportunity to lead HR function end to end in a fast paced software development environment. So a rewarding experience. And then what I decided to do is to see if there is an opportunity to do the same, but on a global scale. So I entered Nuvolo, and my ultimate goal was having end-to-end HR responsibilities, then to step more into a business leadership role. And I actually prepared myself for many years for this role by choosing cautiously a reporting line always to the business leaders. With all my respect to the HR directors and HR managers, um, my decision was to work for companies where I will be able to report directly and to work directly with the business leaders in order to have um, the visibility and the understanding of the business processes and business strategy. And based on the past experience, I would say that this was probably one of the best decisions I did, because it cured me from um, one of the most common disease in HR, to do HR for the sake of HR. Because if you work with business leaders or HR business oriented leaders, you are expected to deliver business results. You're expected to create a strategy that is 100% aligned to the business strategy. And that was extremely important for me at that moment. So next steps I'll share in a minute, but to cautiously make tough choices in my career, to cautiously go out of the comfort zone, it was a struggle, but it was the only way for me to achieve better results. So very briefly, my lessons. First of all, what I did was to stop asking how to do things, stop asking business how to do things, but increasing the business knowledge, I started to propose. And I believe that was one of the things that brought me where I am today. Uh, I stopped asking how to do things. I started to propose the business, how to set up the people strategy, how to manage, how to promote in order to achieve results, but in the same time to keep the balance between the business and the people interest. The other thing was not to bring result. And it was very important for me working with business leaders to bring results. But being an HR, this is a long game. This is a marathon, not a speed running. So you cannot always deliver results in a minute. You cannot always deliver visible results. And this might be very challenging for the career growth. So we are not in sales to demonstrate financial results. Sometimes we are not able to demonstrate or to present any kind of tangible results because, for example, we are running long-term strategic people development programs, or we are running long-term performance or talent management programs, and we do expect results in 2 years. So that was a bit challenging for me, how to justify, how to prove to the business that I deserve the seat on the table without being able to demonstrate results. So one of the things that I did almost in with all the business leaders that I work with was to have quick wins, so things that could bridge the gap of immediate business needs, For example, fast track recruitment or fast track people development if you need, or set up a key knowledge keepers program to overcome a certain professional gap. But in the same time, so to have quick wins that prove the business that they could rely on you, but in the same time to continue to work on your strategic goals. And this balance was successful for me. And the other lesson that I learned in a tough way when I started to work for Hewlett Packard, I was part of a senior leadership of one of the organizations there. We were responsible for 3,000 people, and I was the only woman there, sitting with 18 experienced, especially technically leaders. So I knew at that moment that I'm doing the right things, that I'm setting ground for future success, that the programs or initiatives or processes implemented are the right thing. But they were not very well accepted because of the lack of trust. And that was one of the most important lessons for me, that prior to implement anything, you need to recruit supporters. You need to have the buy-in from the business. You need to have the business in everything you plan to do, everything that you design at the very beginning. You need to do this with the business if you expect the business to support you when you start changes, or when you implement a process, or when you start an initiative or a program. You should have the business already together with you. So it was tough lesson, but it was a game changer for me to start working together with the business, not to do again HR for the sake of HR. In every program, in every decision, in every process that I'm doing now, I'm doing together with the business leaders. I'm first ask for their needs, their perspective, and then start shaping, designing what I'm doing for them, for the business. Probably I'm sharing obvious things, but it's not that obvious at a certain stage of your career. And so there are five lessons, but I think the fourth is my favorite. And I wished someone to like tell me this 15 years ago, to fail. I have a couple of questions here I will address now, just to share 4 and 5 in terms of lessons. So to accept failure, I think the moment I accepted failure a couple of years ago was the moment when I realized that there is an opportunity for growth and to step into the business. And last one is to be prepared. So, for example, I started to prepare myself for the general management position 4 years ago when I invested into Kutrugli program for executive management. So I started early to prepare for the things that I would like to achieve. And for example, I'm preparing now myself for the future when probably such kind of events will be called not human resources, but human and machine resources. So I'm looking forward now to PhD of cognitive science, something that I'm looking to start someday. So to prepare for the next 4 or 5 years.